Little intro spiel here. So welcome everybody. Welcome to NJZL's Professional Development. We're doing a virtual PD tonight. I'm Steve. I'm the PD chair for NJZL, and I am very shortly going to be turning it over to our host for the evening, Amy Gazaleh, who is amazing, and I can't wait to hear from her. Before we get there, a couple of quick things. First, after this event, once it's all done, you're going to get an email with a link to a quiz, a little form to fill out. Once you've filled it out, you'll get emailed a PD certificate. So you'll have an hour of PD if you are so inclined. Just make sure you take care of that form after you get that email. And we do have some more PD planned. We've got a couple things that are going on the calendar in the next couple of days, and you can always keep an eye on the NJZL PD calendar at njzl.org/librarian PD. It's capital L for librarian, capital P, capital D. That is literally a Google Calendar that provides you with a little agenda view of here's what's coming up next. So you can just see, like, we're going to have our September on there soon and our October, November. So you can kind of see here's some of the stuff that's coming up. You can get signed up, and that way you don't miss any of the great stuff. So I think that's all of my preamble. So I'm going to stop my screen and I'm going to turn this show over to tonight's host. Amy, please feel free to take it away. Oh, hang on, you're muted. Let's see. Where is your... Ooh, Amy, you're muted at the moment?
No, I stopped talking actually. But
Gotcha.
yes, I am muted and now I'm on. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming today to talk about collaboration, which is can be a sticky wicket for some of us, depending on where we've landed and what our building is like. So when Steve asked me to talk about this topic, I thought a lot about how I wanted to approach it and decided that I was going to break it down into its most basic elements for me and the things that have made me most successful in my career. I don't pretend that this is a magic bullet that you can just take and suddenly everything is going to work, but I hope instead it's going to get you to think about collaboration with maybe a new lens or just in a new way. And sometimes that change of thinking is exactly what's needed to sort of spark some new ideas and new relationships and so forth. So tips and tricks to help you grow your connections and your program. I'm going to just move my screen. There we go. Okay. So, my story. Who am I? I have been a librarian since 2010. I went to Rutgers. I have worked, including my field experience, I have worked in 3 districts and across all grade levels. I've done it all. I currently work at the Grace Rogers Elementary School in Hightstown, New Jersey. I serve students in grades 3 through 5. I also co-teach a course with Kim Zito at Rutgers as part of the school library certification program. And collaboration has definitely not been easy for me. I graduated from Rutgers and was sure that all I had to do was step into my library program and everybody would be lined up waiting to buy what I was selling. And that was absolutely not the case. And it took, it was quite a rude awakening for me. And over the years, I have learned that every building and sometimes even grade level or department or team is unique. And there is not one single approach to collaboration. It really is about people. And just like we know that we teach a wide array of humans with personalities and needs and obstacles, and we have to address all of that in our instruction, in our program development. The same is true for collaboration, because those humans, even though they're adult-sized, they also come with strong and different personalities and needs and wants and strengths that we have to figure out before we can really develop a strong collaborative relationship. So I did include my email address down here. I would love to continue conversation. I'm really reachable. So I do encourage you to jot that down if you think that's helpful. So tonight, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what works, right? We're going to talk about praise and polish. So what's working. But I would also love to hear from you as to what are your struggles, right? Or do you have a story to share about a struggle that you have overcome, right? So it could be, let's crowdsource a little solution, or it could be just sharing a success. So I did create a Padlet. Hopefully you can use, hopefully that QR code works. Please let us know in the chat if that does not. And then, but we can also use the chat. If you're more comfortable jotting a question or raising your hand, this can be really interactive. This is not a lecture. This is a conversation. So I'm probably not going to be the best person to look at the chat, but Steve will interrupt me and let me know that somebody has something to say. So
I will.
yeah, feel free to keep it as conversational as we can. Okay.
Amy, I'm just wondering, is it possible for you to copy that link and maybe throw it in the chat so people can click it? I don't know if it.
Yeah. So can I do that while I'm sharing? Maybe not. I don't know either. So I'm going to assume that I cannot. So I'm going to just do it this way. Well, this is sloppy, but that's okay. I think it'll work. Sometimes sloppy is okay.
Whatever gets the job done.
Right? Okay, I'm going to do that right now. Okay, that should work. Everybody see that? Yeah? Hi, Zach Arlt. Okay, let's go back to sharing my screen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. All right. Okay. All righty. So let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little hard truth. And just to sort of set the tone for how I approach collaboration, right? So this is personal, but this is how I do it. And the reality is that we need teachers more than they need us, okay? They don't need us to advocate for their jobs. They don't need us to show that they're successful in their program, right? They don't. We do. And I think remembering that and starting from that place, and just remembering that our programs depend on them, and like it does. I will share stories, and I know that you all have stories of being much better informed than those teachers, or much, despite our expertise, despite our knowledge, despite how up to date we are on trends and technologies and literacies. If that's not what they're looking for, that collaboration is not going to happen, right? So we're going to talk a lot about compromise today. But that's really where I come from, is that I need them. They don't need me. But I want to get them to think that they need me, right? So, I want to be seen as indispensable. It's a form of advocacy. Collaboration really is a form of advocacy for us. But those teachers, they could take or leave it, and they're still going to do what they do. And it doesn't matter whether or not they're utilizing the library. But if we're collaborating with teachers, suddenly our program is seen in a much different way. So that's how I approach this. But the good news, because I'm going to talk a lot about things that might feel icky at first. But the good news is, I love this quote from Lin-Manuel Miranda. And it says, "The fun for me in collaboration is, one, working with other people just makes you smarter." Okay. So that's my other premise. So my first premise is we need them more than they need us. And my second is collaboration just makes people smarter. It just goes to a greater good. And so I set that tone because I want us to get comfortable with the fact that collaboration doesn't always end up looking like what we as school librarians would want it to be, or think it should be, or know it should be. So I just want to talk about just working with other people and how collaboration is just better for everybody in the long run. This is a long game I play. It's not a short-term goal. Collaboration is a long game, so bear with me. So I'm going to break this, my tips into 3 categories tonight. We're going to talk about observation, the importance of observation. I love observing people. I like people watching. I like watching how people interact with each other. I like watching how teachers interact with their students. And so paying attention, just paying attention to the culture, right? The culture in your building, sure, but also classroom cultures. Paying attention to what's happening in a classroom whenever that's possible for you is a really good idea. Relationships, who gets along in your building? You know, who might not? How do people work together? And of course, what are the priorities of your particular building? And we know that there are stated priorities, stated goals, stated messaging for our building, but there are also some unwritten and unstated priorities that you pick up on over time. And understanding who in your building does what and how they work goes a long way. And I'll get to that in a minute. Second, patience. This is a long game. Collaboration is based on relationships, plain and simple. But relationships require trust, and that takes time. So unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier on, our degree, our expertise is not enough to build trust with teachers. They don't know what we've studied. They don't know what we can do. And relationship building just takes time. So that was a hard lesson for me. I just thought I could wear my little Rutgers badge and all would be well, but that wasn't the case. And compromise. So forging collaborative partnerships, again, not about us. Okay, it has to be about the teachers. And I am going to get to student-centered stuff. Don't worry, but it really has to be a win for that teacher in order to move forward. And I say moving forward because what I've learned over the years is that collaboration has to start somewhere. And that starting point isn't usually how I would like best define what it should be, right? Or like my ideal collaboration, or what you learned at Rutgers, or what you read about, or what it seems like is like the hashtag school library goals. Collaboration usually starts looking different than that. It takes a little while to get there. So let's see. So let's talk about observation. What are some things you should be looking for? How do you find them? And what can you do with them? So relationships. So here's what I would advise. Notice friendships, who eats lunch together, who gets each other coffee, right? Who walks out to their car together, who waits for the other. How are those friends, who are friends in the building? How do teams work together? And who are the leaders, right? Because there are the obvious leaders. You might have department heads, you might have lead teachers, you might have some other role in your building that sets a teacher into a little bit of a leadership role. But again, who are the informal leaders, right? Who are the people that other teachers wait to speak first, right? Who are the teachers that are the most vocal at a faculty meeting? Who are the teachers that seem to maybe have the principal's ear in a casual, friendly way? Those kinds of things are important because you can use those, okay? If you know that you need or you want a particular lesson to happen, but you can't quite get somebody on board, but there's a win, one person removed. It's kind of like the degrees, right? From how many degrees from Kevin Bacon. Sometimes you gotta step back and then move your way forward. All right, I do see there's a little chat. Oh, thank you, April. Yeah, and in a large school, right, April, especially like if you work in a secondary school, or if you just work in a large district, or a large building, those relationships are key. And it's the informal stuff that matters too. If yeah. All right, let's see. So current practice. So we we think a lot about our own practice, right? But we know what maybe isn't working as well as we think it should. So thinking about where in your practice do you have space to invite people in, where you have space to expand or revise something, or you have space to do something a little off the beaten track. Because that's a great place to start with a teacher. Teachers are packed, right? Their plates are overflowing. Their day is super scheduled. If you can offer an opportunity to introduce something that they just cannot fit in, whether it's a 56-minute block in a high school or a 90-minute block, or it's a 40-minute section of time in the elementary school, if you can offer that, that sometimes is a good place to begin. The culture of a building. So sure, if you're new to a building, you want to ask about past practice, but take a look around at instructional styles, right? What's considered acceptable, right? How can you adapt your approach or your content to what the teachers already think is normal, already think is familiar? If they're not used to doing much with research, like my building, if I walked in and started talking about the inquiry process, I mean, you could just hear all the slamming doors, right? No, that is not how my building is run at all. And it took me a little while to figure that out, because it took a little time to say, like, is anyone doing any research? Like, what's happening in third grade? What's happening in fourth grade? So you have to kind of get to know what people are doing. And believe me, what I learned is that what my teachers are doing is really base level. Like so I can't come in and talk about inquiry. I can't talk about students developing their own research questions, right? I mean, I gotta take that way back to just, let's talk about how to ask a question. Let's talk about how to develop a question. And you got to really pay attention to how things are done. My building is basically a teacher pay teacher building, and it's all outdated. Sorry, teacher pay teachers. And then finally, what is important to teachers and administrators, right? Often I say this may differ from what is important to you, but we know there are going to be differences, right? And sometimes what this means is that we've got to put our priorities in a little box, right? And maybe a box in our brain. It might be in a notebook. It might be a folder in your Google Drive, with your great ideas and your grand plans that are going to live there, and you'll get there. But the first collaboration that you do, or the first set of relationships that you're developing, probably aren't going to hit those notes, right? And that's okay, but keep them, for later. Okay, patience, right? We tell our students all the time the power of yet, right? We tell our students, I can't do that. And we're so quick to say yet, can't do it yet. Well, the same applies to us, right? We have to remember this. And I think it's harder for us to use yet with our own daily practice than it is for us to encourage students to develop that mindset. So a no may not always be a no, right? I had a teacher who I observed was an informal leader in fifth grade. She was a literacy champion, but she was very quiet and under the radar. She was definitely not one of those, I want to wear the titles and I want to be on committees. But I figured out over the time that she was a literacy powerhouse and did not like me. I didn't seem to. I don't know. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get in. And I decided, well, I did spend some time lamenting that, right? So I did spend some time feeling sorry for myself that I couldn't get in with this teacher. And then one day I decided, but why not? I'm gonna figure it out. And I started looking for ways to connect with her over books. So I knew she was a big Sharon Draper fan. And so I started, looking for ways to introduce conversation about Sharon Draper. And this is like a little gift from the library heavens. This teacher's last name is Barr, Barr. And during this time, there was a new my weird school, right? It was Mrs. Barr has gone too far, and it was brand new. And I bought it and I took it to her classroom and I gave it to her, but she didn't think I was giving it to her. She thought I was just showing her class. And I said, no, no, this is for you to have in your classroom. This is for you. It's a gift. And that thawed the ice. So that was a little gift that Mrs. Barr has gone too far was published that same year. But it's those kinds of things where, yep, I definitely sulked over this relationship and then decided she doesn't like me yet. We're going to get there. We're going to figure it out. And I do think there are a lot of things that we practice with our students that we forget to practice with ourselves. So the power of yet is one of them. So slow and steady. Too much too soon or too fast or too scary or foreign, like using the word inquiry in a building that doesn't really know what inquiry is, can be really off-putting. And then when that happens, that's now a relationship that needs to be repaired, right? So there's a lot of like time and energy and repair that goes into that. So just slow and steady. Let them drive it, even though you might have much better ideas, and I believe that you all probably do. But slow and steady and letting them sort of drive that car, I think is often a better way to build trust. Number 3, just like students, right? For students to take academic risks, they need to trust their teacher, right? If they don't trust that they're in a safe space, if they don't trust that their leader, their teacher is going to be supportive, they're not going to take risks. And classroom teachers are the same way, right? It's the same thing, that they need to trust you to take the risk to work with you. And so trusting you could be as simple as knowing that you are going to be at that door waiting for that class, every single time, or knowing that when they had a bathroom emergency and you had to cover, that you're going to be there to do that. And it's not going to be with a huff or a puff or a mumbling under a breath or a mention about how you're late for something else now. Nope. In that one single moment, you need to show that they can trust you, right? And so whatever that might look like, it might look personal, it might be professional. It could be that just following through, right? It could just be if you say, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I'll email you tomorrow I'll look that up. Really doing your best to follow through and get that done. And I know at certain times of the year that's easier to do than others, but it's those little things that subconsciously and consciously build trust. So if a teacher thinks that you're a person of your word, if you're, somebody who's going to help them out in a jam, if you're at the copy machine and they jammed the copier, but they've got to go pick up their class from PE, it's nice to be like, you know what, I got it. I'll figure out the paper jam. It's like not the best day that you've ever had, but boy, does that build trust and relationship. And then, as my friend Kim Zito likes to say, first pancakes. Just because the first pancake does not come out as round or as golden as you would like it to, your first attempt at building a relationship or your first real collaboration may not come off, with the gold medal. I'm mixing metaphors, pancakes and Olympics. But give yourself grace, right? When things aren't perfect out of the gate. And remember that teachers get that. Teachers' lessons aren't always perfect the first time they're delivered. Teachers understand that we revamp and we revise and we reflect and we make changes. And so it's okay. It doesn't, let's loop back to the power of yet. Okay, it wasn't perfect yet, right? So you're going to make a few changes. You're going to go at it again, and that's okay. And remember that that's what we teach, kids all day long. Teachers know this. That's why teachers get so mad about observations on a Monday, right? Because nobody wants to be observed the first time they're delivering a brand new lesson, right? It's that kind of mentality. So if you think about it in terms of your collaborative work or your attempt at building a relationship, I've made lots of jokes or what I thought were commonalities and that fell to crickets, right? And I thought, oh great, this this is going great. But you just, okay, give yourself grace. Maybe they were in a bad place, maybe the stars were not aligned. Whatever, tomorrow's a new day. So that was the best advice I ever got at Rutgers, was that tomorrow is always a new day. So compromise. All right. This is the part that I think is hard for us because our specialty is so unlike everybody else's, and we're taught that what we know how to do benefits everybody. It makes science better and social studies and ELA and art, and everything can be better with the sorts of things that we can add to that, right? Whether it's connections to books or research prompts or the use of technology or whatever it is, we know we can make it all better, okay? But teachers are busy. They're busy. They're not concerned with our standards. They're not concerned with our degree. They're just not. So if it's our agenda, right, it's not going to work. It's just not. And I'm not saying that that's not a worthy goal, right? Like that's still in your Google Drive, right? Your big school librarian goals and your ideas for unit plans and all of your best practices are going to sit there and they're going to be tapped, but not at first, right? So if we come at them with, here's how you should do research. Research should be done this way, or you're still doing book reports. Why are you, we got to go easy, right? Those teachers are overwhelmed. And if it's all about us, they're not interested. Okay. And yes, of course, it's got to be student-centered. I know I'm talking a lot about teachers because our topic is about collaboration. But an engaged and successful student, that makes everybody happy, right? The teachers are happy, the administrators are happy, you're happy, the students are happy. So of course we do need to be student-centered. And that means meeting them where they are too. So if they've had years of experience of doing research a certain way and you bring them in for a lesson and start to teach them something completely new, you have to think about that approach, right? How is that going to land? How can you baby step that in a way that gets them to buy in and gets them to be successful? Because approaching students from a place that feels maybe foreign to them, brand new, and let's face it, they don't see you on a regular basis, right? Maybe if you're in a secondary school, you might see them daily for a fixed period of time while they're working on a project. I see students, depending on the grade, either once a week or every other week. So that all has to be factored in. So of course it needs to be student-centered. And it really does need to be baby steps. Mm. Um, I had a teacher who decided she really wanted to bring her students in to do her research project, but she wanted it to be in the library because she wanted two teachers. She wanted to change the scenery for her students, which is I always think is a great idea. But she also wanted two adults in the room to circulate and help support the students. Terrific. That's a great baby step. The graphic organizer that she had for them was such a disaster that I had to, like, take a minute. I had to, like, walk to my desk, look for a pen for a minute, and just think, "I don't even know how to talk about this." Like, I don't even know how to talk about how vague and difficult this is for these students, some of whom are still learning how to read. Um, so I just rolled with it. That was really hard for me. I went home and I said, "Listen, I rolled with something today that was really hard. So I get dessert, like extra dessert." So it was hard. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it's easy. Like, I bit my tongue and I let it roll, and we saw the project through. And then afterwards, in a very casual, non-threatening way, I just said, "Hey, I noticed that some of the students were having a hard time really understanding what they were supposed to be learning, and that they were doing a lot of transcribing, right? Finding a sentence that seemed to answer the title, on the graphic organizer section, and then just writing it and then moving on." And I said, you know, would you be open to, maybe thinking about a different product instead of written? Like, maybe they could interview each other, or maybe they could present it. And it was like very like, I wasn't telling her what to do. It was like literally walking down the hall, and she was like, "Oh, that would be, that'd be a cool idea." So then I went back and wrote it up, not as a lesson plan exactly, but just to sort of solidify these ideas. And I'll be honest, she didn't take all of them right away, but I'm hoping that, like, okay, so I got that fourth grade teacher to think about things in a different way. She has friends, right? So I'm going to talk to some of her friends, about what I'm seeing in other classes. Vague that, the oh yeah, I'm noticing, I see everybody and what I'm noticing. So because now I've observed who her friends are. So now I know I can, like, kind of chit chat because I know they'll have lunch together. Um, and just sort of talk through how we can start to get to what looks like a much more age appropriate and respectable kind of a research project. So baby steps, takes a long time. And be vulnerable. So be willing to ask a teacher for help to get them in the door. When I was working in a middle school, I was having a little bit of a hard time getting some teachers to really work with me in a meaty way, right? Sure, I could do book talks. Yep. But I really wanted to do something more meaningful. So I actually asked a teacher that I had developed a little bit of a relationship with. I said, "Listen, I'm scheduling an observation, and I had this idea, like, would you be willing to help me out and work with me to show off what we could do together?" Um, and I picked her because I knew she would say yes, right? Like, I didn't just walk up to anybody and say, "Hey, anybody want to come in and watch me do, help me with my ob?" But that's a great way because teachers get the whole, they understand observation, right? That's a universal um challenge. So find ways to say, "Hey, I know now the PGO is up in the air, but in the past I've done that too, where I've said, 'Hey, for my PGO, I need more data. Would you be willing to come in and work with me?'" And just to start, making it about them helping you, not helping you develop your program, but helping you in a way that they understood, right? They understand SGO, PGO, they understand observation. They get it. That's how they work together all the time. And so really asking them to just help out. That's another way to do it. Just to get them in the door. Because once you get them in the door, 9 times out of 10, like it's a win for them, right? We're really talking about getting them in the door, because once you get them there, it becomes obvious so often that the space is better, the vibe is different, your skill set is different than their skill set, and it's very complementary, especially if you're working together. The other thing, vulnerable, in terms of being vulnerable, another example of that is in my district, well, in my building, we are 42% of our students, 42% of our student body speak Spanish at home. And so we have a dedicated class in each grade that is taught in Spanish. So as will be no surprise to you, I see them, right, as part of the regular library rotation, except I see them by myself. I don't see them with the Spanish speaking teacher, right? So I have developed really strong relationships with those teachers by saying to them, can you help me revise this? Here's my goal. Here's my objective. How can I break this down for them in a way that they can be successful? Can you help me with this? Or do you have a set of visuals that you use in the classroom that I could use on my slides so that they're seeing the same visual representation of ideas or words? So asking teachers who know more about something that you're trying to do and say, I really need, I'd really like them to be more successful in the library. Can you help me with this? And then suddenly, you chit chat, right? And suddenly it's, what are you doing this weekend? Or, oh, I like your, your shoes. And, oh, what do you have for lunch? And it becomes now more of a personal connection and a personal relationship, which then, makes it all that much easier to say, do you want to plan something? And in fact, that story about me asking for help with my bilingual classes led to a conversation with this teacher about all the other experiences that her students generally were just lacking because they didn't grow up in America. They didn't grow up in our school system. So that led to, it happened to have been fall. That led to how bizarre it is to teach a non-Native American student about Thanksgiving. Like when you teach Thanksgiving to someone who is not from here, it starts to feel strange. Like it's a weird concept. So which then led to we do a thing. We now collaborate. We built this event together. And this took like 3 years. This wasn't like a one conversation. This took 3 years. We now do an event for the 5th grade bilingual students where they come in and we prepare a Thanksgiving dinner for them. My husband and me and the teachers and the principal. Anyway, we all contribute, but there's a lesson. And so each food item, they learn the name, they learn, what it's made of or where it comes from, why it is a traditional food for Thanksgiving, what its historical significance is, and then they taste it. And then they have to give us a thumbs up or thumbs down. So, and we get approval from the superintendent to do that, to be able to serve food. And we don't do it during lunch, so we don't interfere with, the food service. So anyway, that was a 3-year conversation, right? And now we have this event that is like a highlight for these kids. Like they talk about it all year long about, Mrs. Gazaleh cooking Thanksgiving dinner for them. So, but it was, like I said, it wasn't instant. It took a long time. And it's really just about relationships and conversation and, starting out with being vulnerable and then asking a lot of questions and just, also walking out to their car or helping them to unjam a copier or, popping your head in and going, are you going to the faculty meeting? You want to walk down together? It's things like that. So all those little pieces work together, you know, to surprise endings. So, and that's the end of my tips and tricks. I am really hoping to hear from you all if you have questions, if you have ideas, if you have stories of your own of things that worked, things that are not working. I would love to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces. I hate seeing just a list. Oh, thanks, Jill. Oh, right, April, right? The collaborations happen at the copier, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Oh, I'm looking at all the comments. I have no patience. I want to do all the things. I know we do. It's hard, especially like if it, I don't know how many of you went to Rutgers, but like that's the Kool-Aid, right? Is like we are it, when we graduate and we, walk out, and then, you're one person, and everybody else has got all their other priorities and stressors and worries and time constraints, and suddenly our program or our initiatives or our standards or our objectives feel very small. So yeah, it really is about relationships. Yeah.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Of course, Lisa.
First of all, thank you for this. This was really, really great. Thank you. My issue tends to be that I will plan something with a teacher, and when it comes time to come to work together, they'll drop their class off and then they say, "Do you need me to stay?" And their body language is headed towards the door. And I know that they're overwhelmed and I know that they have a ton of stuff to do. And then I feel like, well, am I really collaborating? And do I guilt them into staying? And I never do. I'm always like, hey, do what you need to do. This is how the lesson's going to go. If you can pop back in, that would be great. But go ahead, do whatever you need to do. I don't know. Am I still collaborating?
Well, I'm not in charge of collaborating, but so yeah, so even the language, right? Do you need me to stay? Right? Like, nah, right. Of course, the only answer you can give is no, no, go do what you have to do, right? That's the only option. Because if you say, yes, I need you to stay, then you're chipping away at the relationship, right? 'Cause now it like changes because now they're annoyed or they're stressed or they're looking at their watch. So, you have to give that answer. I would say, sure, you're collaborating, right? But because collaboration isn't one thing, right? It's a spectrum, right? So if you want to get to a higher level of collaboration, then it becomes, hey, then like it has to be addressed at the planning stage, right? Like your role, my role, right? You introduce, I'll introduce, you know what I mean? Or you support, right? Like, so I think that conversation has to happen way earlier. So like, I'll clarify with a teacher, like that fourth grade teacher who came in for research. Like I'll say, okay, so when you bring them, will you be introducing the project to them, or will they already know? Will you be, and you kind of talk through like, oh, I see, I have a place here. And I'm assuming, Lisa, you're at the elementary, right? What grades?
I am pre-K through 4. And I have some teachers who, when they book time with me, their full intention is no, 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 it's 2 people, 2 adults in the room. Or if there's an aide, there's 3 adults, we're going to get a lot more done. This is going to work really well. And then there's people like on the same grade level, same project, that will be like, okay, so, do you need me? And like I said, I remember what it's like to be in the classroom. I remember how overwhelming it is. And I don't want to guilt them into staying. But then I also feel like, am I just filling time for you? And I guess not. I guess we're still doing a substantial project, but I never thought of like laying the groundwork, like you said, ahead of time. Like
Right.
that's one of those so simple things that it's like, yeah, duh, why didn't I think of that?
That might work. It also, you could also talk about it from like a deliverable, like, so if it's a project that they're going to be working on exclusively in the library, that's harder to do. But if it's something that they're kind of going back and forth, like a little bit in the classroom, a little bit in the library, you can break it up like, okay, so today in library, they're going to take what they've done with you and you can review that. And then we're going to extend it, or we're going to expand it, and we're going to take it a different direction here. So there are ways to just kind of casually converse about that to make it obvious that they have a place. Because sometimes absolutely they are looking to get out of Dodge, right? But sometimes they also see the library as not their purview, right? Like the library is your space and that's your program. So having that conversation casually might just sort of bring down that barrier, whatever that barrier is for them. And then of course it's just like, unemployment is never going to be zero, right? We're never going to get 100% of teachers to be totally on board and equal partners, right? Sometimes the success is just getting them to book the time with you, just getting them in there. And if that, like, you have to know, okay, that's the win. We're never going to get 100%, right? Because we're working with humans and they're tricky.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, I liked how you were talking about making good connections, and something that I often try to do is really pay attention to the bulletin boards near the teachers' classrooms. And I'll pop my head in and even interrupt the class just to say a huge compliment of, I love how you all did this or that. And also pay attention sometimes when teachers are putting a bulletin board up, they don't do it all in one day, but it's coming. And if you see a topic that you can maybe go grab a book and say, I don't know if you've seen this book yet, this might go well with your topic. It's just another way, but things around the building, not even necessarily in the classrooms, can also be good clues.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant, because those bulletin boards are so personal to those teachers. It takes so much, it's hard work, it's creativity. So acknowledging it and making a connection, and then, making a little subtle, hey, we can do more with this. That's awesome. That's really a great idea, Kim. Thank you. So I'm looking in the chat. Sharon says, teachers love to talk about their pets. That's for sure. And then find books for them as a starting point to let them know I'm paying attention. What a great idea. Using a teacher's special interest also gets their students excited. That's true. In my building, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, and where we are in Heightstown is very split. We're really in the middle of the state. So it's New York or Philadelphia, and it's really split. So I make very special connections with the Eagles fans in the building. But that's true. Pets are a great idea. Sports, anything, any kind of special interest. Like I found out what a teacher in my building was training for a marathon, and I was a support person for a marathon runner for a long time, and so that was a great connection, right? So it's something I can follow up with. You could ask again, how's that going? Really good idea.
There's also a couple of really great suggestions over on the Padlet.
Okay.
Folks shared some really good thoughts there.
I also did not mention collaborating with, I'm looking at the Padlet, collaborating with administrators sometimes is a really good idea. If you know that your administrator has a particular interest or kind of a pet project, finding ways to connect with them is great. Yeah, okay, let's see. Ugh, yeah. So having no one else in the library to help pick up other duties, like checkouts, when you're trying to schedule sessions with teachers. Oh, that's so hard. So tell me about the class novel checkouts. Is that something that you do, like you house?
That is something that we started last year, that the library now is in charge of all of the ELA books. And when students need an ELA book, they have to come to the library to check it out. And usually the classes come down as a group and I check one out to everybody. But sometimes the teachers either can't or don't want to come down, or they want to schedule their book checkout at the same time I'm trying to schedule like a class with somebody else. So it's like, hey class, give me 10 minutes while this huge group of people wanders through and I take care of this thing. So it's it's always just a little bit of, and it's kind of new. So we're still kind of feeling it out, but it's definitely, last year was a little bit of a challenge.
So this doesn't solve the distraction that is the whole class coming down while you're also trying to do something with a different class. But is it something that you could train teachers to check out themselves? Is
I
it?
hope so. And I'm trying to. Our checkout system actually allows phone checkout with like a phone
Ah.
scan. So I'm trying to get the teachers onto the app so that they can just boop, do it themselves. Haven't quite gotten there yet. So that's maybe for this coming year. We'll see if I can get them on that. But that's one I've been trying to work on.
Do you
But
have any flexibility with your schedule to block out like a time in the morning, a time in the afternoon, or whatever, that like these are ELA times kind of a thing, like so that everybody kind of learns over time that this is the time for that?
I'll have to think about that a little bit. I don't know. We've got a new schedule coming this year that's supposed to have a middle of the day, like work prep period. So maybe I'll have to see if that might fit, because that's an interesting idea. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. See.
Yeah, April. So that's middle grades. And I do have some, my Library Ninja kids. I have to get a group going for this year, but theoretically, it would depend on if the kid had class. I don't know. That's another thing that I'm trying to set up, a Library Ninja like period that kids can take as an elective or something, but we're not there yet. Lisa, is that a dog I see?
So
Steve,
somebody
I was going to say, I'll talk to you later, Steve, about how I do that and how I did it in elementary and now how I do it in high school, because it's kind of like that in mine. And there's a whole system where we do it like with Post-it notes. So you do the checkout, you put the Post-it on the whole, they all get delivered back to the classroom. Hopefully that'll help you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's true too, right? Like if you got a roster, you could do it on your own time. Like it kind of could be send it to me, I'll get it back, I'll turn it around in 48 hours or, whatever, 2 days or whatever. And I like the idea about the student ambassadors to help with that too on a schedule. Yeah, you're in a middle school, Steve, or high school?
I am middle.
Middle, okay.
Yeah.
And somebody else posted in the Padlet about offering to fill in time with book talks. And so there are those, pockets throughout the year, whether it's in and around testing, before a holiday, leading up to, November in New Jersey, if is a weird month where very little gets done. And so offering to help teachers get through their days with book talks, or I think April, was it you who said something about like teaching about podcasting, anything, because that's definitely a cool thing that a lot of classroom teachers don't have the expertise or the comfort level to do on their own. And it's super engaging, and you get such great buy-in from the kids. So that's a great idea. I'm looking back.
This is so great. We've had such great ideas and conversations going already. And Sarah Kelly Johns threw into the chat, I made a huge jump in collaboration by offering to grade students bibliographies for projects and setting up Noodle Tool accounts for all students in teaching,
Wow,
sharing the collaboration feature at faculty meetings, grades 6 through 12.
that's huge. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Love that. I don't know if
One-
if anybody else has thoughts, questions, or concerns they want to share. Yeah.
I was just going to say one thing that works well with my first graders is the teachers have to do DRAs at the beginning of the year, which is reading assessments. And with first grade, especially at the beginning of the year, it's so difficult to have the rest of the class doing something while the teacher's meeting with one individual student. So I pull the classes and I can do more introduction to using the Chromebooks. And so it's a win-win situation. The teacher gets the time to work on the assessment with the students, and I get extra time with them to be able to get them going on the Chromebooks.
I was very fortunate that I was able to tell my teachers around testing time, like, hey, I know, or at the end of the marking period when I knew they had a ton of grading to do, hey, if you want me to do a lesson, send your kids on down, or I can come by, or whatever works for you. And like, anytime we can give them the gift of time, that's just a win for everybody. So
Yeah, and any day that the schedule is turned upside down, right? Whether it's like an early release day or there's an assembly and things are getting swapped around, like anytime their schedule is impacted, that's a great opportunity to say, we could do this in the library together, or we could do, because it's not their, usual routine and they're looking for things. So
I just had a quick question.
Mhm.
I am brand spanking new to this. So in September, I will start my librarian journey. So I don't want to bite off more than I can chew as far as collaboration goes. But I do want to be helpful, and I want them to know that I'm so willing to collaborate on projects and help in any way. So what is a good first step in kind of acknowledging my willingness to collaborate, but not also making promises that I may not be able to keep getting my feet wet this year?
Oh, Allison, it's great to see you. Where are you landing? What
I'm
grade
in
level?
Gloucester City, so it's where I
Yeah,
taught for
that's
20
right.
years, and now
Yeah.
I'm in the librarian position. So I'm familiar with the teachers, I'm comfortable with
Right.
relationships, but I just, my thoughts are, do I go to grade level meetings and say, what are you looking for from the library? Or is it more let them come to me kind of situation?
Go ahead, Jill.
Hey, so I've started over a couple of times, but so first off, if you know the teachers, I mean, that's a great thing, because I was going to suggest either send a welcome email, or a couple of times I've done like a little pamphlet to put in teachers' mailboxes to just introduce myself. The one issue, are you elementary?
Yes, we're pre-K to 3, but I'll only see K to 3.
So and you provide a prep?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
teach 40-minute classes to each grade.
So that's what's tricky about, well, in my experience, about grade level meetings. You're typically with kids during that time. That's how they can have those grade level meetings. But I would say if you connect with a couple of the teachers, if you either had former like grade level colleagues, I don't know exactly what your transition is, start with those people. Just be like, oh my gosh. And did you have a relationship with the librarian before you?
Briefly, just as soon as I started to get into this, part of the job, then I kind of went under her wing, but then she just retired. So it was like,
Okay.
I didn't have enough time with her.
So did any other teachers do these collaborative type things with her?
Not that I'm aware of. I think.
Okay, so it's not even like you have to say, remember what they used to do? Okay.
Yes,
So I would
really.
just say, take a couple of the people that you feel most comfortable with, people who would be willing to just kind of like, as Amy said at the very beginning, like that one first out of the gate didn't work. Oh, we'll just kind of laugh about it and we'll try again. I would say just really kind of start that. You'll never get everybody at a grade level, and you don't have to, but start those relationships with the people that you feel really comfortable with. That could, that would really support you and be like, oh my gosh, let's try it this way. And to Lisa's point, the people that won't just drop them at the door, they'll be a little more sympathetic to you at the very first couple of times. That's my suggestion anyway.
Zach.
And then I just finished my first year. So like I get you, I feel you. And my thing was I'm in a middle school 6th through 8th. So I kind of saw that 6th grade was kind of gonna be where I wanted to hang out this year, because they removed 5th grade from our building this past year. So they were like the last 5th grade class to kind of be here the library had been pretty much in flux for a few years before that, like since before COVID. So I kind of saw that like the teachers were dealing with a group of kids that kind of had a reputation already. And we were in this big transition. So getting in with the teachers and then also getting in with the kids, because they're going to be at this building for 2 or 3 more years. So like I really focused my energy on finding those places in 6th grade that I could just kind of like, oh, hey, here's a book. Oh, hey, you want to come do an extra book checkout? Or like, I have a poetry lesson. Let's do poetry. So kind of like figuring out what's going to have the best like payoff in terms of how long they're like going to be with you. Because like it also worked out that most of the 6th grade teachers were also newer teachers. And like the 8th grade teachers were mostly veteran teachers that like, they're like, we have our stuff, we're ready to go, we're moving, we got things to do. If we get them to the library, great. If not, we're still moving along. So that was just like my culture in my building, and that's what I noticed. So kind of figuring out what grade level is going to have like the best place to kind of slide in, and especially if it's at those grade levels that are newer to the building. That's what I found.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And to expand on Zach's idea, and I'm thinking about what you said about in the beginning, Allison, about not biting off more than you can chew. If you know that there's something in the curriculum or missing from the curriculum, so I'm thinking poetry, like so often, April comes around and teachers are like, I can't get to it. Like, we're in the middle of this, we're in the middle of, like, I can't get to poetry. Like, that's a great opening for you to say, oh, I would love to do an activity together on, and then it's like, it's finite, right? Like you're developing something related to, their animal research or poetry or whatever it is, Thanksgiving or whatever it is that you feel like teachers might be rushing through, or teachers might not have time to get to, or people, it's been done the same way forever and ever. And you can introduce just a small little extension or an opportunity to address something that the teachers can't do. That way you're not like making yourself, you're not like green lighting the door, like, hey, come on in whenever, schedule all the time with me, all, as I'm a first year librarian, but you could, be more like, be more strategic. Like Zach was saying, think about a particular grade level, or, think about something that you're passionate about, maybe that you really like to teach, or that you would really like to develop, and that, isn't really done, and you can then hit those couple of teachers that you're really comfortable with and say, what about this thing? Would you like to do that together? And then you feel like you've dipped your toe in the water, and you've, as opposed to flinging open the door and inviting everybody in for dinner when you don't have enough.
Thank you, everybody.
I was gonna say, I think that was actually really good, Amy. Like when you just talk about that, like one thing, like I know last year at school, I'm actually no longer a school librarian. I'm now went back to public library. But last year, all of a sudden our building decided they wanted all the teachers all in on Hispanic Heritage Month, which, is mid-September to mid-October. And it was like, they never did anything for that before. And, but I always had in the library. So I already had resources together. I already had this stuff that, even though only a few teachers may have come and worked with me on, they were doing a lot of them chose to do biography type stuff. Even though only a few of them chose to come and work with me to do that, all the teachers got links to the resources and stuff. So it still showed me it's valuable in some way, whether they were working with me or not. And then what I wrote in the chat about, like, I really suggest in the beginning, making those new teachers, like, because they're going through the same thing as you. So like, even if it just starts with a camaraderie of just being new teachers together, and you have to go to the new teacher meetings together and stuff. I had their numbers and we would text back and forth about stuff going on. And now that I'm no longer in the school, those are still the people that I text with. And I found that each year when the new teacher started and I sent them an email with all the resources available in the library and what could help with lesson planning and stuff, those were the people that would come to me, and they were more likely to be the ones that would stay for lessons that they purposely, signed up for. Because one, maybe they thought they had to, but also just because they were new and they were more excited to collaborate and to work together and have someone take a little something off their plate. And, you know, so I feel like that's another great avenue to explore.
Yeah, allies. That's great. That's a great approach. Go ahead, Kim.
One thing that I have done in the past when I've either made changes or when I first started was I asked for just 5 minutes at the first faculty meeting where you could kind of introduce and say, hey, I'm new in this position, but I know you all, and have like 3 things that you're, or 2 things even, you know, one of the things being, you know, clue me in on what you're studying and I'll pull some books, because so many times teachers come in absolute panic, like, I need a book on this, and they're panicked, you know, that, or they thought they had their copy and they can't find their copy and now they're looking for your copy. But, you know, even just starting with books and resources like that, and then they start becoming more familiar with you and your skills, and then the collaboration grows. But I would just start with just a couple of things and, you know, just admit, hey, I'm new at this, guys. This is my first year, but I know you all. And I know, and part of it, I did the same thing. I was 25 years in the classroom, same building, and now I'm in the library. And I knew, you know, some of the content that the other grades taught, because, you know, you've developed curriculum, you've seen curriculum, you know what they teach, you know who teaches animals, you know who teaches states, you know. So, you know, just kind of clue in and say, you know, I know that you work on this, the counties or whatever. What time of year do you do that? So I can be ready for you, you know, that sort of a thing. Just kind of try to connect with books first, and then it'll.
Can I just speak on the speaking at a faculty meeting? I always wanted to do that. When I was doing my field experience, I would do a media center minute during the faculty meetings, and it was great. But then I did not have supportive admin. And I think what Amy said earlier about, like, you know, collaborating with administration or working with them and getting them on your side, because otherwise they're going to throw you at the end of that meeting. And what teacher is going to be happy when, oh yeah, oh, I was going to let you go, but wait, we have a few minutes from the, you know, the librarian wants to talk. Nobody's happy. And anytime I asked to speak, it would always be like, well, we can throw you in at the end, or, oh, you can do a presentation at the end. Like, I want to show them a database. Yeah, nobody's going to be happy to stay for that. So, like, you know, trying to get that admin to, you know, talk with them and be like, hey, it would be much better if I could start off this meeting, or somewhere in between, that you don't seem like you're the one extending it.
And just to build on what Kim was saying about the staff meetings, I even found it helpful to create like a monthly book list, because a lot of times, and I was guilty of this too when I was in the classroom, you have your set book for this particular lesson and that's what you always use, and teachers aren't aware of the new books that came out. But not only would I have a listing of the books to share with them, have the actual books out at the meeting that the teachers can put their hands on them, and they're going to want to check them out on the way out at the end of the staff meeting.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say about the staff meeting, I mean, it just goes back to observing, right, how things go. In the very same district, I was in a building where I could have spoken for 25 minutes at a faculty meeting every month, and it would have been welcomed. And it was, everybody spoke, and it was long, and it was fine. And then I transferred to a different building in the same district, and everybody sits at those faculty meetings in this particular building looking at their watch. Right. So it's just observing, right? I could, that was, you know, I was hugely successful at faculty meetings in the other building. So it, you know, anytime you have an audience, an alternative, and this is depending on how open your admin is to PD, but our building started doing before school 30-minute PDs. So like for hours, you know, you get 30-minute, you know, you get a half an hour. And so I started developing some of those, because sometimes people just come because it's April or March and they're short hours, right? And so they can, you know, clock in a couple of 30 minutes and pick up you know, an hour or two. But you got a captive audience there too. So that's just another, you know, different way to kind of just get their attention. And yes, Lisa, food and books. Yes, food and books. Oh yeah, April said too. Cookies, coffee, Hershey Kisses, right? Yep. Great.
So many great ideas. I want to be respectful of people's time. We're actually 10 minutes. We've gone an hour and 10 minutes, and I feel like we could probably go for the rest of the evening because we've all got so many great ideas, and I'm so excited that we're sharing. Hopefully, this is not official yet, but hopefully we'll be doing a idea swap meet in maybe early September-ish, where people can come and share all their great ideas. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Hopefully we'll have that firmed up soon. Actually, that is, I want to point out, the suggestion of one of our members who happens to be here. Amy Pop actually emailed me this thought, and I love it. So hopefully we'll be able to make that come together. I want to thank Amy for sharing all of this. And before we go away, I want to take a second because we're talking about collaboration. And I realized that I have 2 copies of The Gift of Story by John Shu, and talk about a book that is great to share with, especially with your ELA teachers. So I have my copy, but I've got another copy that I got my hands on. So we're going to do a little raffle, and we're going to see who gets a copy of The Gift of Story, still in the wrapper, as you can see. So brandy spanking new. Let me switch this over to this. Here's my wheel picker. All right. So we're going to see how this goes here. I'm going to spin the wheel. And our winner is Lisa. Congratulations. So I'm going to work on getting that copy to you, Lisa. I will reach out and find out where you want to send it, and we'll get that to you. Congratulations. And yeah, thank you everybody so much. Thank you again, Amy. We cannot thank you enough for sharing all of this. She volunteered to come and do this for us. Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you, everybody.
Jill. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This was fantastic. Amy, you're a rock star.
Thanks, Lisa.